I'm the senior minister at First Christian Church in Fulton. Thanks for joining us for this week's midweek devotion here on Tuesday. We'll get right into it. Let me pull it up. Actually, I pulled up the wrong thing, and now I got it. Now I got the devotion. It all centers around our choices, how we choose to do the right thing. How do we know to turn right or left when we're at a fork in the road? How do you know the correct thing? I've got a 3-year-old that loves Frozen, and so I recently watched Frozen 2, and Anna in Frozen 2 sings about that you're just supposed to do the next right thing. And I think that's good advice, but it still leaves the question of how we know what the right thing to do is. I mean, Anna had a magic scene sent her way to sort of guide her path forward, but I've yet to have one of those. We often think that giving people knowledge is the way to make more informed, read correct decisions. The idea is that we're thinking creatures guided by our minds. People will know what the right thing is to do if they just know all of the factors in play. Give them more information, more knowledge, more understanding, and they can and will do what is right and good, what is best. Unfortunately, we more move around guided by our hearts, not our minds. We all have some ultimate goal in life, a telos that guides what we do, whether we know it or not, whether it is actually what we say it is or not. Think of it as a vision of the good life. This is what our heart wants, so it directs our actions in what we think is right. What the heart loves, the will chooses, and the mind justifies, so the saying goes. Our heart is sort of in the driver's seat of deciding what the next right thing is, regardless of if it goes against all the prevailing knowledge, information, and understanding. Have you ever tried to convince someone to fall in love with you or out of love with you? You can't. The heart wants what it wants. Doubly, unfortunately, the heart isn't always the best driver. As much as we hear sayings all the time, especially when things go wrong, like, he has a good heart, a more biblical vision of the heart paints a different picture. Jeremiah 17 says, "The heart is devious above all else. It is perverse. Who can understand it?" It's the New Revised Standard Version. The heart is more like a 12-year-old driving a self-propelled lawnmower on his grandparents' farm, desperately not wanting to admit he has no idea what he's doing, running to keep up with the mower, all the while trying and failing to avoid the trees his grandmother had just planted. Not that that's a particularly personal memory. No, not at all. We can't really sort of understand our hearts, why they do what they do. See Romans 7:15-20. Even if we are aware our lives are being driven by the prepubescent version of ourselves, we can't wrestle the wheel from them. So at best we can do is shout directions from the back seat, and we all know how appreciative people are of backseat drivers. So this leads us back to the question. You're at a fork in the road and you have to make a decision. How do you know which way to turn? How do you choose the next right thing? How do you, follow Jesus? I suppose this is the ultimate question of the theological category of Christian ethics. Paul gave some pretty advice in one of our readings from this past Sunday. He wrote, "Light produces fruit that consists of every sort of goodness, justice, and truth. Therefore, test everything to see what's pleasing to the Lord." The light of the world produces fruit. So we're supposed to test it. Have a healthy sense of skepticism when it comes to one's heart's motivation, and see if what you choose produces goodness and justice and or truth. Does the choice reflect the wisdom of the world or the wisdom of God, the cross? Is the road you're wanting to take leading to Calvary or some other mountaintop? Are you letting the grace and mercy of God guide you, or are you just going to do what you want to do? And once you test it, and you find out it's not right, admit it and go back. And mind you, Paul is writing to a group of Christians. The letter was written to the church of Ephesus, to the church. So it probably means we should ask other people of faith, maybe even a pastor, what they think. Having a plethora of voices ensures we're not just in an echo chamber reverberating back what we want to hear. And don't forget about prayer either. Ask the Holy Spirit to guide you and actually listen for its promptings. Ultimately, this isn't necessarily good news. No decision or choice or thing is completely right while living after the fall. Sad as it is to say, true goodness, justice, and truth will come at the last when all things, including our hearts, will be made new. But right now, until then, we navigate best we can with humility and grace at the forefront. Our decisions should be guided by those things. Thanks for joining me for this week's devotion. I hope you heard a word of grace, maybe even something that you can take and apply today. You're invited to join us back here on Facebook Live or YouTube. Tomorrow, we're going to have our 4th installment of Lenten Lunches, and then come back to join us for worship too on Sunday morning at 10:30. If not, our benediction is the same as always. God be with you till we meet.